Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another segment of Warm Yogurt in Her Throat. I am Xavier.
And I'm Mr. J.
And there it goes around and around and around. Today, we're going to talk about something chilling, frightening, and they're all around you. No, I'm not talking about parasites in Congress. I'm talking about serial killers. Kind of the same thing, though, honestly. So, serial killers.
So, what are we discussing about serial killers?
Okay, we originally tried this last week, and I was having massive internet problems, so we had to shut it down. We had like 20 minutes of good footage, and you could barely hear him. It was just cutting in and out. He sounded like a robot, so we're trying to pick up and start over and have the same conversation, and it's going to be difficult, so please bear with us.
Yeah, because I can't remember all the good shit that was said.
We were talking about H.H. Holmes, America's quote-unquote first serial killer.
Okay, well, let's start there.
Okay, H.H. Holmes, America's first serial killer, they say. I disagree with that because I believe that there were serial killers before that. It was just the first documented. Back before that, we were more nomads. We wandered, and I'm sure that there were lots of people that just killed just for the sake of it, wandering all across the country. And, you know, in Europe and shit like that, so not really a thing. H.H. Holmes did his stuff right after Jack the Ripper or during Jack the Ripper's time period.
Okay.
He actually saw Jack the Ripper's escapades in the newspaper that got over to Chicago after a certain point, and it is rumored that he said they haven't seen nothing yet. And this man personally built, developed architecture, everything like that, a building called the Castle. And not every room, there was like the third floor was designed just for hotel guests, so quote unquote, but the rest of the place was designed to kill.
Right, it was a labyrinth.
Yeah.
With really no beginning, no end, and it was actually amazing what he managed to accomplish.
Yeah, and the reason why we're talking about serial killers, everybody, is because they are a statistical anomaly within society. Now, if you look at every single serial killer, like him and I were discussing before we even recorded, every single one of them is a psychopath or a sociopath, which is almost the same thing. Not really, but yes. But in all of that, there are still millions of people that have the same characteristics, but are not killers. They're not murderers. They wander the streets and do normal everyday stuff. They just learn how to control the primal, or in which case, and this is the thing you need to understand, when it comes to those types of people, I'm saying this because it's true, they don't have that button that a lot of humans have. It just doesn't exist. They don't feel guilty about hurting a lot of people. Not everybody. I mean, when it comes to like your own family and whatnot, you know, even then there's some people that absolutely still have that button just for that.
Mm.
But when it comes to anybody else, they don't have it. And I don't have a button in regards to bad people. The difference between Mr. J and myself is that we separate who's good and who's bad. He looks at people as more bad. I look at people as more extreme bad, evil. Like, for example, the Parkland shooter. Honestly, I think they need to cut his fucking balls off, feed it to him, and make him watch, after they videotape it, what they just did to him. And keep him alive as long as possible and keep doing it over and over again. And I would do it.
I'm actually a fan of the Clockwork Orange style rehabilitation.
Yeah, that's.
You know,
would that work though?
I don't know. I mean, it was drug induced,
mm-hmm.
To a point where violence just made him physically ill.
I watched something, or and I didn't watch something. I was
And
coming.
I mean, I'm sure that there is a drug out there
Mhm.
that would attack that nerve point in the brain.
Yeah.
Um, but again, it would have to go through extensive testing with known violent offenders. At which point, I don't think that any human rights activists, even with violent offending criminals, would sign off on that. It would have to be like some secret fucking society.
Well, that's the weird part is we regard. Now, I'm of the belief that everybody has rights, even criminals. But I'm also of the belief that after a certain point, when you cross that line, nobody should give a flying fuck about you and your rights.
Well, I honestly, I don't believe that criminals should have rights, period. If
You can't say that. You're a graffiti artist, or you were a graffiti artist. You're considered a
Yeah,
criminal.
yeah, and do you know what?
Hmm.
I'm okay with saying this. I'm comfortable with saying this because one, I was never in prison
Hmm.
for my crimes.
I
I
was.
feel I feel that once you are in prison, your rights as a human being should be fucking stripped away until you rejoin society.
Hmm. Well, the problem with that, I think we're about to go off topic here. This is kind of
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
But
we kind of.
real quick, the problem with that is that our entire judicial system is based off of, okay, so when you get out of jail, you still lose your rights. You lose the Second Amendment if you're a felon, period. Hands down. That's
Right.
bullshit. You lose the right to vote. So I lose my voice because I committed a crime. I, who haven't done anything in well over 20 years, if I committed a crime heinous enough to where I lost my rights, I should be punished the rest of my life for that. Fuck that. That's the problem. Is that everybody's all about we need to punish the people because they did something bad. Okay, that can be debated, but honestly, the punishment still continues after the fact. You can't rejoin society and then say, but you still can't do this. No, either I'm a part of society and rejoining it, or I'm not. And if I'm not, then I'm a second class fucking citizen, in which case you might as well take me right back to fucking jail because I have no fucking rights.
That's a gray area that we could cover in another episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk
But
about that.
but let's get back on topic. We were talking about H. Holmes, and I think one of the valid points that we brought up when we attempted this earlier was that he was one of the first he was the first serial killer to actually turn a profit
Yeah.
off of his crimes,
Yeah.
to where he would murder people in his hotel and worked closely with a doctor friend to strip and clean the
No,
skeleton.
he was a doctor.
Well, he also worked with another. He worked with another man that
Yes, Seidel. Seidel was a drunk
had,
and did just about anything for money.
right, and they would clean and strip the skeletons and then sell the skeletons to universities for
$200 a pop.
for medical purposes. So I mean, he was brutally murdering people and selling their remains. And one, he got rid of his evidence,
Mm-hmm.
and he turned a profit. I mean, thinking about it, and like I said, we're not praising serial killers for what they are, but you
You can respect the mindset.
you have to respect the intelligence and the entrepreneurism.
Yeah.
He was a brilliant fucking businessman.
Yeah.
Architecture, medical science, business. The man was fucking brilliant, and I think again, one of the valid points is that we pointed out was that if he took that mindset
Mm-hmm.
and shifted it towards the positive,
Right.
what he could have accomplished
Right.
in the world.
Right.
And it's, finding out, exactly what that trigger was and what's happening up there upstairs that's
They say that whenever he went to medical school, he started on working on cadavers, which was part of becoming a doctor. And they said that's where his fantasy came to life, where it snapped him into place. I don't know if that's true because it's merely hearsay and studies on him, but I'm like, well, if that's the case, then you shouldn't have anybody working on cadavers ever. I'm just saying it's kind of an excuse there. It's
Yeah.
well, like one of the things that they point out, and this is I actually have found this to be true, is to spot an actual serial killer in the making is to find a child who tortures animals.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say.
And I'm not discounting that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it shows
Lack
a
of
simple
empathy.
it shows a simple mind of a child,
Mm-hmm.
basically abusing their power as a superior creature.
Right. Right.
And though I do disagree with that, I mean, I disagree with the fact that, yeah, like no human should consider themselves a superior creature to a point where they have to torture and mutilate an inferior creature.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that at all. But I mean, it's a simple child's mind. If they weren't raised to know the difference,
Yeah.
and the right and wrong, it could strictly be a curiosity thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's if it's a repeat offense,
Mm-hmm.
then I could see that as being a sign of a serial killer in the making.
Yeah.
But I mean, curbing that,
Well, it's if you see signs that can be fixed, it's not a sign of a broken child, it's a sign of a child. Of course, there was a instance in England where two 10-year-old boys walked into a mall and picked out a 2-year-old child from a mother's stroller. As she walked in to get something real quick from the store, she left it right out by the door. And video cameras saw these two kids walking this 2-year-old through the mall. No one really stopped them. Whenever they did, they just, they acted like he was their brother. They took him to the railroad tracks and brutally tortured and murdered him. And then threw him on the tracks, and the train came and cut him in half, this 2-year-old kid. And I forget what exactly they did, but apparently they're out now. And this is where I fully admit I might have a flaw in logic, but this is how I see it. Those kids are irreplaceable, or you can't fix them. They're fucking broken.
They're not redeemable.
Yeah, I don't believe that those kids should be allowed back in society. And I'll freely admit it, and call me a monster all you want. Kill them.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That is irredeemable.
Yeah, and they found out during the trial that this was premeditated. This was all planned out. They knew what they were doing. A bunch of 10-year-olds.
But again, because they should have been tried as adults.
But it's England.
But I mean, that's a single killing. That's not a serial killing.
Yeah, but it goes to the mentality of what would happen if they weren't caught. Would they have continued? They did it once.
But you're veering off the topic here. Because what we're discussing is the mentality and the intelligence with falling into a serial killer. Yes, what they did was premeditated, and if they were not caught, it could have went on and on and on.
Right.
But being a 10-year-old, you don't have that calculating mind.
Not necessarily, but yeah, I can give you that.
It's like.
Well, I can go right to the next serial killers, which was the couple in England in the 1950s or 60s or something like that. they lured children out into the moors. They're called the Moors killers, and
Yeah.
they slaughtered kids. The woman lured the kids into her vehicle to find like a cat or a barrette or something like that. And they would take them out into the moors, and then the man would kill them. They started off with the oldest kid, which was like 15, but he or she, I forget. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I honestly don't remember the sex, but he said that the kid was too powerful for him to control, so he wanted younger. So they actually went younger kids because he couldn't control a 15-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah. And they went on for quite a while. They were a duet.
But they fit the serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
What was it, MO or whatever, but at the same time, it's like serial killers like H.H. Holmes.
Well, yeah, you're looking for the Hannibal Lecters of serial killers, and I'm talking about just serial killers in general. Some of them do not fit the bill of high IQ, the manipulative mentality, things like that.
Right. I just I mean, I've read books on serial killers, on several serial killers, and I've done a lot of research on it. And I mean, I've always had a twisted, morbid sense.
It's a curiosity. It's really
serial killers have always interested me. I find like scavenger animals.
Yeah.
Very interesting, like vultures and hyenas and shit like that. I find that really interesting because even with animals like that, they are some of the smarter animals in the animal kingdom.
Why work when someone can do it for you?
Right. And it's the brutality and the intelligence. It's fucking interesting.
What's interesting to me is the case of Gacy, Pogo the Clown.
Right.
Now, I have read up, but in the end, it all comes down to they found 33 bodies underneath this house. I heard nothing about what happened. Do you know anything about that?
I've read on it, and I'm sure if I pull the book,
I'm sure there's details, but just.
But, I mean, from my understanding, I mean, he dressed up like this clown and would attend children's birthday parties, and that's how he picked his victims.
Huh. But I don't know. I've always been curious how a guy like that can get away with that much. And you got to keep in mind, and this is how I look at it. If you found 33 bodies, they're not the only ones. They're the only ones you found. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Holmes.
I think in the end he admitted to more.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing with Holmes. They were only able to connect 9 kills to him.
Oh, I'm sure that there was a lot more.
But he owned the castle during the World's Fair, whenever it was fully built and everything like that. And he opened it up for people to stay there while the World's Fair was going on, and they say there were an average of 50 people that went missing during that time period. But they can't fully connect it to him. And I say, once again, just because you found them or you found the connection, there's more. And that's what what always intrigues me is how can people, especially Gacy is one of them, how can people absolutely get away with people not having a fucking clue? Because they asked all of his neighbors, and they all said the same thing. They all said the same thing, that they had no clue. He was the nicest guy, a real nice neighbor, everything like that. And that amazes me. That you can and that's one thing I find intriguing about serial killers the most, is that they can compartmentalize their mentality of primal versus reality of the real world. Basically, the reality of the real world is their fake person that they create in order to exact the primal, which is their real person.
Well, I mean, on that same lines, another serial killer that fit that bill was Albert Fish,
Yeah.
who, you know, just he was the nice old guy
Mm.
that was always around, and to a point where he was so convincing that he walked into a couple's house, offered to take their daughter to a birthday party, and the couple let him.
Mm-hmm.
At which point, he brutally murdered and cut her up and ate her.
I don't remember this. Who is this guy?
Albert Fish, he was an old guy. He was
What was the time period?
30s, 40s,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. I'm not sure. But he kidnapped children and mutilated them and then ate them.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would actually go so far as to write letters to the family explaining exactly what he did to them.
Wow.
He was also very into self-mutilation.
Mm-hmm.
When they x-rayed him when he was arrested, he had like 37 or 39 pins shoved into his groin. Like he would self-mutilate. He would whip himself in the back with like a cat of nine tails or
Was
a
he
spiked
religious?
I don't remember all the details there.
Possibly due to the time period he might have been.
But it was the fact that he was one of those.
Nobody saw it coming.
He comes off as the nice old guy.
Yeah.
And so trusting that you would let your child daughter into his care.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I don't even let my daughter leave with certain family members, personally,
Yeah.
let alone some random fucking old guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's the guy next door persona, you know, Jeffrey Dahmer,
Right.
another one.
Right.
Like, to look at the guy, you wouldn't think that he raped, murdered, and ate teenage black kids.
Right.
But
I mean, honestly, I gotta say this. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I really want to know. Is it just because of the dark meat? Like, would there be a difference in taste? I've never tried it, never want to. But
you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess we would have to consult a cannibal to see if there is a difference between white meat and dark meat.
Right. It's like that's a very specific.
I don't think it was the taste.
You think it was just easy access?
No, I think that was his fetish, was black boys.
Wow.
Black teenage boys. That was, you know, like some guys only like white women. Some guys only like black chicks, you know. Some of them have yellow fever.
Yeah.
This guy just happened to like teenage black boys. So
I did not know that he picked just black kids.
Yep.
I was kind of young, you know. I just heard about a dude who was eating people. And I'm like, ew.
Yeah. I mean, it was fitting that he met his demise in prison with his head smashed off of a urinal.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, despite what people say about criminals, there are certain things that they do not allow. Criminals.
Yeah, there is a criminal code of conduct in prison.
Yeah. Like with thieves, our code of conduct is you don't harm innocent people. You're there to steal only. You're not there to hurt people. You get in, you get out. That's our code, as opposed to even fucking murderers. You know, it's
well. See, there's and that is a difference between breaking and entering and a home invasion.
Right. Right.
You know, people that are strictly thieves they case the place and wait for nobody to be home,
right,
so that they can get in, do their business without the risk of harming someone.
Mm-hmm.
A home invasion, they don't give a fuck. They're just going to bust in, take your shit, fuck you up. You know, and it's the different levels of criminality.
Right.
And each group of criminals does have their own code of conduct, so to speak.
And one thing that nobody likes is kitty rapers.
Right.
Hands down.
I mean, Yeah, I mean, a little while back, I read a thing that a guy was arrested for raping a teenage girl,
Hmm.
and in prison they fucking held him down and tattooed the girl's name and the word revenge across this guy's forehead, so that every day he had to look at see
Yeah,
what he did. I mean, they beat the shit out of him. They tattooed this girl's name across his forehead, so it's
that's
like,
justice.
yeah, not really. I mean, they should have cut his fucking balls off
Sure,
and
we go
shoved
with
it up
that
his
too.
ass. But I that. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there's that level of code of conduct within criminals.
Is Charles Manson considered a serial killer?
I think they actually considered him a serial killer, but I don't think he's ever
No,
actually
he's
killed
never.
anyone.
Manson is
Well,
never
they said
recorded as killing a single person.
but they pulled the same thing with Jack Kevorkian as well.
Right.
Uh, Jack Kevorkian never actually killed anybody. He just provided the means.
Yeah, he was a euthanasia doctor. That's what he was.
Right. He provided the means. He left it up to them.
So then I got to ask the question, since we're on Kevorkian real quick,
So
before we get back to.
Basically, Kevorkian was he was Jigsaw.
Yeah. But my question is that was Kevorkian asked to do all this for each person? Or did he do it on his own without their knowledge?
No, I think the people came to him.
Okay. So he
I
was
think
the doctor that will help you end your suffering.
I mean, honestly, anybody out there, if you can fill in all these gaps that we're talking about,
Yeah.
feel free to comment, because I'd like to know.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is because is that considered bad? I mean, I know it's considered bad because he was arrested, put in jail, everything like that. But honestly, does that make him bad?
No, I don't think it does.
Because I can tell you right now, from a man who lost his mother, I guarantee you, after a certain point, she wanted something like that to happen. My father wouldn't have let it, but
Right, but I mean, and there are some people terminal cases that they know it's coming, and they've hit the stages, the acceptance stage, and they're like, let's just fucking do this.
right.
And I mean, in my opinion, he kind of helped them with their final wish.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted it to be done. They didn't want to suffer anymore. But then you also have to take into consideration that some of the cases were just depressed people that were like, I'm too scared to fucking do it myself, but I need to die.
Right. But even then,
but
this has always been my problem is they made suicide illegal. Well,
if you survive it, you could be arrested for it.
So my question is, I mean, the utter stupidity of it. But why? You are literally harming no one but yourself. And honestly, it is your life. You do with it as you see fit, as long as you don't harm others. That's my opinion. I'm not saying that I agree that suicide is a good thing. I'm just saying, why do we feel the need to legislate things? It's the same thing with drugs. Weed, for example. We legislated it out of existence because it's bad, quote unquote, even though it's their own people's bodies. Let them do what the fuck they want. I despise drugs. Meth, coke, you name it. I fucking hate them all. I will never fucking do them. And honestly, I've seen worthless pieces of shit that just do drugs. And they can't get off of it. And, honestly, I don't care. I don't care about them at all. But I also wouldn't call the cops on them. Let them do what the fuck they want. And here's the thing, though. As long as they don't harm others. The problem is that a lot of addicts, they rob people to get that money, to get that extra price.
Right. And you know what? And I agree with you. I mean, I'm not going to call the police on you. If you want to fucking shoot up an OD and fucking die, that's on you.
Right.
I have absolutely no sympathy for suicide cases, and I have no sympathy for junkies.
Mm-hmm.
Equally.
It's a waste of a fucking life.
Yeah, if you're gonna fucking do it, just fucking do it. Don't bring anybody else down with you.
Right. I mean, yeah, your family's going to be hurt, but honestly, how long were they hurting while you were doing drugs?
Exactly. But again, we're steering off the topic, and
Well, yeah, I'm just looking at the curious case of Jack Kevorkian. Just, they considered him a serial killer. He was a euthanasia doctor. Is what he did considered a heinous crime in the public's eyes? Forget the law. Forget the law and the government that wants to regulate your entire life. Talk about, is what he did wrong to the normal person out there who has a grandmother who's fucking just terminal and it's fucking bad? Would you want a doctor around who would be willing to do that? Granted, he did take the Hippocratic Oath, but honestly, the Hippocratic Oath states, "Thou shalt do no harm." But the problem is that if you allow suffering to continue, you are doing harm.
that's a gray area.
Very gray. That's why I'm talking about it, is I don't really have an opinion one way or another on it. I'm just saying that.
But again, with that, like I said, that's that gray area that could be discussed at another point because, I mean, overall, the topic is serial killers.
Okay, well, let's go right to Manson. The reason why I bring him up is, yes, granted, he never killed a single person. He had everybody else do it for him. But my question is that, well, not really a question. The reason why he's so curious to me is, how do you get that kind of power? Is it like because he's a cult leader, so to speak, like David Koresh or whatnot?
I don't know. I mean, there is a level of, and that's just the thing with sociopaths. There is a level of charisma that they have. It's a manipulative sense that they can literally get people to do what they want.
Right.
I mean, and honestly, you've got a charismatic motherfucker to get people to kill for you.
Hey, let's go ahead and cut this, go to the next part of this segment. We're having video issues, and I don't want it to get bad. I'm going to restart real quick, okay?
Okay.
So we'll cut this off and then go keep talking about it in the next segment. So we'll be back.
Okay, bye.